We're waiting for the jury to go live. We're waiting for the jury to come in now. They just been called back. Turtle Boy reporter, he said this could be it. I mean, how many times they have another note saying that that's it, it's a wrap. Will they bring them? Will Miss Bev, what you want to call her, send them back? Send them packing, send them back to the jury room. Go back, keep deliberating. Shout out to On Civil Law. Go check some of his streams out. But we are waiting right now. They're on their way back to the courtroom. What an interesting trial this was. But, this trial
you are unmuted.
Tells you what reasonable doubt is. We got 2,047 people. What's up, everybody? Here we go. 2,086.
Pass. So we'll bring them in.
The biggest stream yet. 2,252 people in the chat. What's up? Yo, jury's in chat.
You rise for the jury?
Yeah, all rise. On my channel.
All right, Mr. Foreman, I am in receipt of your note. Judge Cannoni, despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet this standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges. The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your service.
Karen Reed does not go to jail. It's a hung jury. So now is the state going to retry Karen Reed? I say hell no. Don't Paulie. Come on, Paul. Keep your head up. I mean, this guy was with the O'Keefe's the other day. I mean, not the the McAlberts at the VFW at a verdict watch party. So right now, here we have it. I would be all smiles. I don't know if I'm Karen Reed right now. Because this is not a win.
All right, I'd like to pick a status date to find out what our next move is. So I'd like to come back sometime, maybe the end of July.
Now we need to pull the jury.
I understand people have vacation schedules.
That's what the defense wants to know. That's what they
Can we come in the week of the 21st?
Where were they locked at? So Karen Reed, the O'Keefe family will get justice when the real killers are brought to justice. So you want to be mad to the O'Keefe family, you have to be mad at the Mass State Police. Where's Boston Police at? That courtroom should be full with Boston Police. Where are they?
Is there another day that week? Could you do the 25th or 26th?
Unfortunately, I think I'm supposed to be for vacation on the
So
okay, the 22nd and the 24th are not great dates.
Free.
So
it's a mistrial.
Okay. be the 19th at 9. Is that whole week?
No,
about
that
that?
week's not good.
Karen Reed
Teaching
is
that I cannot get out of.
free.
Can we do
Trial in the Karen Reed case.
August 7th, 8th, 9th?
Shout out to the 2013.
No, we'll do the 22nd. We'll go back to the 22nd at 2. I can't let it go that long.
Your Honor,
I bet they're going crazy outside.
Ms. Little and I are not available on the 22nd. We have a hearing in Los Angeles on the 22nd.
Okay.
We're proposing to appear remotely anyway.
Okay.
But for a status conference, I don't want to.
Mistrial. Karen Reed is free.
Okay.
They're gonna push us off to
So you and your
July.
client will be here in person, Ms. Giannetti. All right.
You know, Miss O'Keefe
right.
is
Thank you. We'll see you then.
all upset.
Football rise.
You know, you want to be upset, you got to be upset at the police department for effing this investigation up so bad. You want to be upset at DA Lally for effing this investigation up so bad. In the end, the evidence showed that Karen Reed was innocent. And we got a hung jury basically showing that. You know, people was not going to switch. They weren't going to go the other way. They're all hugging, happy. You know, Paul O'Keefe, you know, I don't understand how he could not come around and see the evidence for what it was. After you heard them two scientists at the end, the last two witnesses, after you seen them two witnesses talk, it should have been over. But for those of you just joining, we gotta go. Let me see if I could do this.
I'm sure a few people are going away for the 4th of July, but I'm one person. I'll be here. You know, obviously, not the 4th of July, it's closed, but I'll definitely be here all the way till the 4th of July. And then if it follows up to next week, we'll be here backing them up again.
Does it give you a lack of confidence that the jury has not come to a verdict yet? I mean, they just talked about how they have to come up with a decision later. This might be a hung jury. This could be a whole new trial.
For those of you just joining, we're gonna replay what the judge had to say. All rise. These were the instructions, and even the judge, that was nice what the juror wrote. You're sending us in there. You're trying to force us to make a decision that we don't want to make. And she was like, I don't want to do that, because that's grounds for automatic appeal. Paul, you had to know this was coming, right? You want to hang out with the Alberts? Like, how can you not see what's really going on?
All right, Mr. Foreman, I am in receipt of your note. Judge Cannoni, despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet this standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges. The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your service. Okay.
All rise for the court, please.
People like if you think Karen Reed should have went free.
Thank you. Be seated. Court still in session.
All right,
Now
I'd like to
over.
pick a status date to find out what our next,
And again, for those just joining us,
Please rise for the jury. Court is in session. Please be seated.
all right, Mr. Foreman, I am in receipt of your note. Judge Canoni, despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet this standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges. The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to see what NBC Boston is. Oh, good. They've got it live. Let me go out to them. Hold on, Ed. I'm going to back it up just a little bit. All right, let's back this up here. Hold on.
We're gonna have, I only have right from my other.
Hold on, Ed. I'm going to mute you for a second. What did I do with this? I just had NBC Boston. Okay, here we go. I muted you, Ed, because it was live. It was loud.
Okay.
But you're back. You're back. I just got to find that
Yeah,
feed that I just had.
I said I'm hoping I'm not making people dizzy, but walking around Home Depot.
The idea and that John O'Keefe is the victim here. He died tragically, and at this moment, we're not going to know why. And at this moment, no one is being held accountable. JC.
Sue, stay right there. We have Michael Coyne, our legal expert, on the phone. Michael, Judge Canoni did say that.
hey, what am I doing? What's up, everybody? Hold on. I got you.
Come back, can they fit it into their schedule? The financial issue becomes a question as well. And then ultimately, how do their schedules all work as to when this might be retried? There's always the possibility that the government might decide not to pursue a second trial. I don't think that's likely. There's also an unlikely possibility that they could strike a deal as well. Again, I think that's an unlikely possibility here, JC.
Let me just ask you, how much say does the O'Keefe family have when it comes to the prosecution's decision whether or not to retry?
Not a lot. I think obviously the district attorney would take into account their feelings, but either whether they were strongly one way or the other wouldn't necessarily be dispositive. as the chief law enforcement officer for Norfolk County, he has a responsibility to everyone involved to really take a case and see whether it makes sense to go forward again.
All right, Michael, joining me now on the set is Glenn Jones. Glenn, as you heard, that has been declared officially a mistrial, which is where we were leading based on the jury's note to Judge Cannoni on Friday late in the day, and then this morning, and then here we are, 2:30, they came in and declared yes.
I suppose at this point we can't be entirely surprised that this is where things ended, especially with how eloquent and articulate the notes were from the jury. And here we go. I expect, as Michael Coyne just said, that we'll be here doing this again because, of course, there is a victim in this case and there's no accountability yet for his death.
Michael, are you still with us on the phone? Michael,
I am, JC.
I just wanted to ask you, and this is a Monday morning quarterback kind of question, but it's also just off the top of your head. This was a 9-week trial with more than 70 plus witnesses. If this were to be retried, could we think that the prosecution might have the ability to cut that in half and perhaps take a slightly different approach to this?
I think you're absolutely right. If it's tried again, they have to cut it in half. They have to boil it down to the essential parts of the case as they see it, which should be the excessive drinking, the driving, and then obviously tying his death more closely to
Found beyond a reasonable doubt, and there are some who could not find beyond a reasonable doubt. So we don't know what the split was. I've got words. Thanks for the 5. Thank you both for being here. You're both so comforting at this very stressful time. It's a win for the defense. We'll get to that in a second. Prayers in Karen's favor, says Taz. Thank you. On top for the super sticker. Bride of Frankentruck. Sure, that wasn't one of the jurors fleeing court. I mean, they might have wanted to after all of these days of not being able to get anywhere. And they did try. I mean, they gave it the old college try. They really, really spent the time, the effort, the energy. They took their job very, very seriously. Desert Cat says they don't trust Bev on the jury forum findings. Well, that is what it is. Melanie says, does that mean they hung up on the top charge? Thanks for the 20, Mel. I mean, we don't know.
But clearly there's no verdict on any. So, the murder is still on the table. But I'll tell you something. If they do retry her, which I don't think they should, and I'm not sure they will, but if they do, they ought to give themselves a little more credibility and by thinning out the case. And the murder is such an overreach anyway. Honest to God, if they're going to do this again, they ought to dismiss the murder count and focus on the lesser accounts. I mean, this idea of having to prove what her intent was with this nonsense over text messages and trips to Aruba, make this a simpler case. I mean, both sides are going to reevaluate what they did, but I think for the DA, the clear thing would be trim the fat. I mean, 70 witnesses, 15 of which it felt like came from the waterfall.
Right.
Enough of that. Do you really need to get into witnesses from Aruba? Enough of that. Do you need all of this if you're the DA? No. And, the defense they'll probably change a few things up too. But again, it all favors them. I mean, they should be happy and they should be ready to fight as long as it takes. She's never going to get convicted on this evidence.
Right.
It will be interesting to see what the split is, but I mean, I don't know how they can expect to ever get a conviction here.
Her life is never going to go back to normal, no matter what. Unfortunately, she has to live with this for however long it's going to take the Commonwealth to decide whether or not they're going to retry her. They're coming back for a status conference on July 22nd. Alan Jackson made it clear that he and Ms. Little would not be able to be there, and David Yannetti will be there. It doesn't mean anything will happen, but of course we will be here to cover it for you because
I mean, look, the case is over. They have other cases. It's true. They live halfway across the country. I wouldn't read into anything because they can't physically make it back to Massachusetts in 3 weeks for a 10-minute court appearance. And I think he even said, if we can appear virtually, we would. I wouldn't read into anything. And, for everyone to assume, they're not going to stick around. None of us have any idea what their arrangement is. And if you heard them anyway, does Alan Jackson strike you as the kind of person who just walks away, leaving a client at the lurch? No, he's not going to walk he's not going to walk away.
I think not.
No.
S. Crook said O'Keefe gave a death stare and said something to Karen on the way out. Thank you, S. Crook. And then somebody else repeated that and said,
It's not
Nick free
appropriate.
Karen Reed. Paul said something to Karen as he was leaving. She heard him and turned toward him.
I don't know what it was.
Either.
Assuming it's nothing nice. I mean, that's just so inappropriate. I understand he's pissed off and he thinks she did it, but you're in a courtroom. There has to be some decorum. You know,
Mhm.
he, in the beginning of the trial, he was, you know, not appropriate towards her visually. I don't think it was as bad towards the end of the trial. You kind of have to feel for them and give them a wide berth because of the loss they went through. But on the other hand, you know, you can't be intimidating her and making faces and that kind of stuff. It's
Wonder
just,
if he apologized. I doubt it.
I doubt it. Although I did read that when he had his accident or his DWI a few years ago, didn't she bail him out?
She did. And it wasn't that long ago. In fact, I think it was the October right before John O'Keefe's murder, I believe. October
Yeah.
21 or October 2020. Maybe it was a little bit before, something like that. Amber, everybody involved in investigation and prosecution of Karen Reed should be
Over
ashamed for what they are doing to
2,000
the
on
O'Keefe
Killing
and
People
Karen Reed
Real
family.
podcast.
John O'Keefe
And
probably
on the
turned in his grave
podcast page
24
on the
times by
Microbe
now.
one, we got 680.
There's a lot of
Doing
unhappy
better
people.
than
I mean, if you're
John
Michael
DePietro.
Proctor, you know, the idea that you could have
Howie
to do this
Cobb,
again and get
4.2
subjected to this
thousand.
again.
Right.
We talked about
What
Buchanan.
you
I think
talking
I would be
about?
really nervous just because I don't think the full import and problems with his testimony was fully realized at the time. Now they're going to have months and months to deal with that if that's the case. I mean, if you're Jennifer McCabe,
maybe
you
Howie
want to
Cobb was
come
talking
back
about
and go through
the
this again. Brian Albert, Higgins.
Karen.
Yeah.
I mean, Higgins looked kind of nervous the first time around. There's
But yeah,
this is
definitely. You know, all these people out
well, yeah,
there.
of course they're going to. NBC reports the DA
guilty
says they're going
signs,
to retry
the
the case. Of
evidence
course
is
they're going.
just right there in your face. I mean, there's a lot of reasonable doubt in this case for sure, but did we see it? Yeah. We definitely
To
did.
say that
Oh,
today.
NBC is reporting that already?
Yeah,
of course.
which is not surprising.
2034. Appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Free Karen Reed.
And maybe they will. I mean, it wouldn't be
backwards
crazy
now, so
for
I'm
them
gonna
to do that, but certainly that's what they're going to say. But we'll see what happens over the
put
course
the invite up to
of
get in the
several
room if
months.
you want to
But
come up and
what else are they going to
say
say
something.
today?
You
I mean,
know,
there's
gotta
nothing
be,
else
gotta
they
have
can
your camera
say.
on, gotta
So,
be clean.
but you know,
I'll put
maybe
it in the comment
reporters ought to
section.
ask Morrissey the real questions, which is, you know, putting aside what this jury said, how do you
You know,
do this
come
in
on
the
live
face
and
of
let us
that
know how you
scientific?
feel
I mean, do
about
you
the verdict.
think those witnesses are not credible? And if so, why didn't you get a real expert to confront them? And are you going to use? They're not going to use Trooper Paul. There's no way. There is no way that guy
Okay, there you go.
is going to
Copy and
be
paste that
within.
right there.
You know, he's not going to be giving any expert testimony. Of course, the problem
/,
is
and
he's the one who
I
did
think I
the
might even be able to
experiments, if
go
you
over to
will.
the
So they're
Twitter
kind of stuck with him for that.
and maybe pin it there.
But I don't think they'll be using
not
him to
sure.
do any real expert, you know, testimony theorizing about the accident.
Let me just cut back because it looks like we missed a little portion of Alan Jackson's
Yeah, let's see.
speech. So let's watch that again. Hang on. Put that back up. Where are they going to find 12 people anywhere to agree up there? I don't know. Thunder Road Cream. They might have to go for a change of venue, we think.
Even if they do, I mean, it's all Boston media. I mean, you get out of Norfolk County, but you know, going 30 miles to another county.
Yeah. Here's the beginning of Alan Jackson's speech that we missed earlier.
Folks, this is what it looks like when you bring false charges against an innocent person. The Commonwealth did their worst. They brought the weight of the state based on compromised investigators and compromised witnesses. This is what it looks like. And guess what? They failed. They failed miserably, and they'll continue to fail. No matter how long it takes, no matter how long they keep trying, we will not stop fighting. We have no quit. Go ahead.
I just have two things to say, folks. Number one, I am in awe of the strength and courage of this remarkable client that I've had the privilege of representing since day one. And number two, I want to send a message to all of her supporters out there. Your support was invaluable. We are touched and we ask for your continued support. I'm not from Texas like my colleague here. I'm a Boston kid, but I'll repeat what he said, which is we ain't got no quit.
Yeah, so we missed the
you
very
were.
beginning
We
of that.
ain't got no
And then we
quit.
got to see it. Them's fighting words, and that's a pretty strong
Yeah, I mean,
statement. I wouldn't expect anything less from him.
it is a win. It doesn't feel like it, but and she's still in jeopardy, and there's all, you know, she's still subject to the power of the court, not having a license, bail, the looks, the stares, the criticisms, I suppose to some extent the risk of being convicted, although I don't think it's ever going to happen. But I mean, 99% of the time when you're on trial for murder and you walk out with a mistrial, for the defense, that's a win. And especially in a case like this, where, as Jackson said, some of these investigators are totally compromised. Some of these witnesses are totally compromised. And they just don't have, that I can see, any pushback evidence to make it stronger. So this becomes an exercise in futility for the DA. And to me, I'm really curious to know if it was more than one, and if so, how many, because that, I'm telling you, that has to factor into the strategy of jury selection. And put aside this judge, is this a bench trial?
Right.
I mean, the
If there
evidence.
is a retrial, she's going to be the one to handle it, right? So, I mean, she said she's setting it for a conference, so she's keeping it, even though she's been transferred to civil court.
Let the
It's not a
indictment
decision they would ever
begin.
have to make until the very end.
3,051
So there's no
Bench
reason
trial, yeah.
Yeah.
to say one way or the
No
other.
reaction to the
But
Karen
you know, things
Reed
happen, things change, people come
mistrial.
and go.
It's
Other
a charge.
things being equal, if it was Judge X, I mean, if this was a retrial in front of a judge,
investigations.
I mean,
This
it's
is what's
an acquittal in 30 seconds just based on common legal principles.
This is
Anytime
what
you introduce
don't
random
back.
citizens into it, there's always the risk of
I'm
something. And
surprised
in this
Jimmy
case, something
Pollock
happened.
did
Yeah,
not lie
and
Emotion.
you just don't know
Ties.
how
Young
many
jerk
of them,
should be like,
you
wait,
know, were
Nancy
stuck on
Grace,
this,
big
which
mouth.
is
We'll be looking for that. We'll be looking for some juror interviews.
Where's all
Karen's
these
retrial will be the same
people?
judge. As of right now, it is, yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't be, unless
Let's
she
see
decides to
what they're
retire
saying
or
on
just says, I'm
non-civil
done with
law.
this. I don't think she would.
No.
I mean, she's been associated with this. And of course, the theory is, if you're familiar.
Okay, hold on. Let me get you over there.
And stopped a few people who had never heard about this, which was sort of mind-boggling. But that goes to Kurt's point. Not everyone is obsessed with true crime. Not everyone is obsessed with this particular case. It is possible, but as Kurt said, I guess you'd have to do a little bit more due diligence to get there. Sky Lazaro from Elazal Company. My gut tells me no one from this jury is going to want to speak, followed by Annie K's question here. How will some jurors' privacy be protected now if others want to talk, especially if this was a lone holdout, which doesn't sound like to me, but what do I know? I'm sitting in a studio in Miami. But to the greater point, Sky Lazaro, how are jurors protected if, let's say, 2 of them want to speak, but the other 10 want nothing to do with the media?
Jurors are usually instructed by the judge when they're dismissed about being contacted by others. They're told that if they want to speak at this point, they can or don't have to. As far as privacy, I'm not sure if there is a lot. Some of these other panelists may have some thoughts on it, but I'm not sure that there is a lot that really can be done. I would think there's probably some instruction that's given to the jury about other jurors and their right to privacy, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, this is a great comment here from Jury Duty RN. We may hear from these attorneys at any moment. Space Coast, I know you're juggling a lot, but if you can keep an eye on the local stations there that we're streaming it, we might get some live coverage of a media scrum with these attorneys and or the Commonwealth. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And if we miss it live, we'll get it to you on tape. A question, Tim Jansen, to you, and I'm going to unmute you right now. Jerry Michael wants to know if we could hear the protesters cheering at the end here, and the judge heard that. Why didn't she put a stop to it or have more stringent restrictions on these demonstrators? You were there today. I mean, how far from the courtroom were they?
They were right across the street from the courthouse. I'd say about 50 or 60 steps from the courthouse, and they could be heard. They were positioned right where the defense lawyers and Karen were staying. So whenever they came out, there was always cheering, free, Karen Reed, and they were very vocal. But most point, they weren't vocal at all unless there was some activity happening. They were pretty quiet. Now, there was one lady that did some stuff, but way you couldn't even see them or hear them, really. There was only about 20 of them versus I think they had like 5 or 6, I think about 500 people in pink.
Yeah, I'm looking. By the way, Tim is no longer at the courthouse. He had to take off, but the rain is coming down. Is that right, Tim?
It's pouring thunder and lightning.
And
rain. So I don't think they're doing any press conference outside until the rain stops.
And I'm looking at video. They are demonstrating quite loudly. The Free Karen Reed protesters or demonstrators, I should say, in the rain. So the rain hasn't stopped them. And according to the COE, I don't know if this was in the courtroom, that Alan Jackson gave a few words. Karen Reed said nothing. Sky Lazaro, what do you think is going on with Alan Jackson right now? He basically put his entire life into this case over the last probably year. It's a 9-week trial. He lives in Los Angeles. Now it comes to this kind of unfulfilled end that's open-ended. Do you think he stays on this case? I mean, they'd have to, obviously the Reeds would have to pay him an exorbitant amount of money to do this. Is it feasible? What do you think's going on in terms of Alan Jackson in this case moving forward?
Yeah, mistrials are hard because you spend so much time preparing for trial, and then especially in this case, in trial. At the end of the day, a mistrial it's still a win for the defense in my mind. I know you always feel when you get these like, man, am I going to have to do this again? You're exhausted. Is my client going to want to pay me to do it again? Is the state even going to pursue charges, or try to retry her?
Call it what it is. It's the same thing, practically speaking. I didn't care. It didn't bother me that she ignored me at the bar. But then he's like, well, and all it does is tell the jury he's trying to sanitize those texts and not give the impression that he was trying to bottom O'Keefe's girlfriend, which could make a jury say, wait a minute, something's not right here. And then he did send the text, are you coming over to O'Keefe? And so when he gets defensive like that, all he's doing is in essence asking the jury to wonder, why are you so defensive over the fact that you clearly were hitting on her? She was at least receptive in the sense of the text messages. And, you feel bad because that was your friend. You shouldn't have done that. But why not just come clean with it? And he didn't. And it's just going to make them feel that maybe there's something more nefarious here. And that's not good for the DA. So you ask yourself, what was the purpose of calling him over these text messages? He made it sound like these were going to be bombshell messages, and they were about as stereotypical nothing as it gets.
Absolutely. It's going to be great to see what happens on Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., full day, only day next week. And then who knows? We'll see what happens the following
We
week,
already
right?
know
I mean,
now it's
how
over. Of course,
many more
this is
weeks
an
do you think
older
this is going to last?
episode.
They haven't called the
But
medical examiner. They haven't called any state police. They haven't called
it's a
Berkowitz.
wrap.
They haven't
It's a
called
wrap.
anyone who tested the
But
car
Cameron
and did all
Reed
that sort of
is
stuff.
free.
I mean, they are
Check out the Facebook
disproving
page,
a defense that has not formally been offered yet, more than
podcast,
proving their
man,
own
right
case.
there at the bottom. of
And by the way, when you
screen,
see people
CWK
commenting,
podcast.
"Oh, that's smart,"
on
that's
Facebook,
not
all
that's
the
not
Twitter
what you do.
accounts.
Yeah.
You focus
Back
on
up
your
to some high
case, and then
school
if you have to
football
knock
very,
down the
very
rest, but you
soon.
need to lead the jury to think
Right
of this
now, you
that
already
you're
know
on the
it.
offense proving, not the
Sometimes I'm like,
defense.
yo,
I mean,
you
everything
over
the
the
DA is
edge,
doing is a
TMZ
defensive
with it.
posture.
But
Looks very weak. I gotta say, I don't see
boy
how
can
they
do
can
something
turn this
nasty.
around.
It looks terribly
I hate
weak,
to
and
say
they
it, more times than not, he get the results he wants.
Right, and to
that's
be honest with
because
you, I honestly don't think it's over. Honestly, I think exactly what this state needs. We've always needed a platform where we can call out the nonsense,
the repercussions,
and give people the props that they deserve, and call out the people who are full of it. And honestly, I think that more and more people are starting to utilize Mike's platform for that. And honestly, I know a lot of folks. A lot of people talk to me, "Oh, Emerson, like you're on there and you talk this and you talk that," and I'm like, listen, I said. Name one thing that he's been wrong about. And then there's silence.
But boy, right?
Because they know. Because honestly, like that stuff that's being exposed, they're like, "Oh, damn, how did he find out about it?" And again, Mike has his sources, and I never get into that. But at the end of the day,
man, hey,
what
look.
he exposes is the truth. And people don't want to hear that. They want to hear the watered down version. They want to hear, "Oh, well, I don't know how he found that out, blah, blah, blah." But, they want to duck and dodge and this and that. And, there's no need for that. It's like, okay, we need to bring a level of respect back to, coaching and administration and stuff like that. And honestly, when people get called out like that, they call out the nonsense. And that's exactly what we need.
Y'all better stop playing with that boy.
Oh, the alignment's good for football on second thought. Dude, you crapped on it this whole video, man.
Sitting there like I have no clue what I'm doing. Like I was just keeping my hands out of it and people were just taking shots at her left and right. And it was, for me, it was.
Dude, he said, "I have no idea what I'm doing." We know that. But what you meant to say was like, I had nothing to do with this. No, you called out a parent. I have never, ever, ever called out a parent, man. Never. Accountable. And that's where the Can We Keep It Real podcast came in. This was a platform that I dedicated to promoting student athletes. Speaking the truth about the challenges that a lot of these kids face. And we're also not afraid to tackle tough questions, whether it be the pressure of balancing academics and athletes, staying competitive on the field, competitive in the classroom, tackling the lack of resources that are available to these kids, and definitely the toxic culture that exists inside these sports. One of the focuses of the podcast is holding coaches accountable. Everybody knows that. Coaches play a big role in the development of these kids. And it's very important that they are held to a higher standard of conduct. That's right.
That's the bad guy. Bad guy. Bad guy. That's the bad guy. The bad guy. The bad guy. Commission. The bad guy. The bad guy. The bad guy. Load up that queen.
Hear Adello on the beat.
Wins. Not everybody. The older coaches. They want to cry. They want to go to these RIIL meetings. And they want to cry. We're not competitive. We can't do this.
I can't be in. What are we doing here?
Oh, he wilding right now.
Stay out here. Rhode Island, stand up, man. I'm trying to put on for my city.
Football in Rhode Island, bro.
I'm trying to put on for my city, man.
Be honest with you, I'm pissed off.
D1. But I don't want to be called D2.
Getting things correct in the most timely manner possible.
But we're never going to win a championship.
Oh, you know, has some winners, has some losers.
So do not say, don't try to mislead these listeners.
It was ugly. I don't want to.
It's more than Family Guy. I know you heard of your boy Japan, and I'm rocking out with Chris Clark. He from the West Coast. I'm from Rhode Island. Let's get it going now. It's how it's going down. Brody got its own style. Smallest state in the nation, but we so proud. Yeah, we so proud. Screaming out loud. Here we go.
When I drop you off, you never see your father. Saw 48 hours of the week. It's not enough for us to speak. It's not enough for me to teach. I wanna hug you. You're out of reach. You're so far away. I just want you here with me. Just know this wasn't up to me. Driving from your mama crib, I find it hard to breathe. Hard to tell you what I mean, but I never wanna leave. There's things I must protect you from. I only can 2 days out the week. I only feel like a man on them 2 days out the week. Rest of the time, I'm on my grind. Sometimes I forget to eat, but I'm hungry.
Not promote or promotion any illegal activities. All content provided by this channel is meant only for educational purpose only.
One thing I was.
And it's our business to keep up with this.